Because of shared task responsibility increasing and because segmented responsibility is decreasing, I think the result of that is those who choose to take initiative and those who follow through after they take initiative are creating a separation between them and the rest of their peers, because as more of the work we do takes on a shared responsibility feel to it, as more of those tasks are in that vein, you can choose to pick up more of those tasks. Because with segmented responsibility, you stay in your lane. I'm only responsible for doing this, but that work's going away. And we see this in the credit union industry for just as one example. 10 years ago, we had a teller one, a teller two, teller three, then a loan officer one position, and you would move up these promotional levels. Now we went away from that model over the last 10 to 15 years in the banking industry. Just the credit union industry alone is $1 trillion industry. And that industry went from a teller one, teller three, two, three model to a what we call a universal teller model. And that was a teller who had more responsibility, who had more insight, more experience, and could help customers with more dynamic problems. Because the problems that the teller one and teller two were doing, we automated those tasks.
All right.
Tasks are more complex in nature.
I think this is a common phenomenon in any service-ish industry.
Yes.
In the university system, it's the one stop. So that a student initially goes to the information desk, then goes to admissions, then goes to all these different steps. And so the modern model is to have a student come to one stop where they have outreach, they have financial aid, they have admissions, you can get your parking pass, everything in literally one stop. And the reason for this is to reduce the number of individual encounters for the student. So it's to reduce the barriers, right? And probably for the customer. So that if teller one can't escalate or needs to escalate, now they got to go to teller two, then teller three, what have you. The problem is, so this is a great idea. You have to understand your business really, really well. And maybe there are some businesses that have a narrow model or a narrow thing that they do, and it's pretty easy to understand what they do. But to have a strong centralized system, you had better be sure that the things that you're putting in there are the absolutely necessary things. Because if it's bloated, then all you have done is cause this big pool of confusion and tossed everything, including your customer, into it, hoping that somewhere within here, we're not quite sure where, that they'll find the solutions that they're looking for.
Exactly. And I think that's why following through, that's why feedback, why all these soft skills that we teach are so important, because there is so much opportunity for and connectedness in task completion. So as organizations get bigger, as institutions get bigger, the tasks get more complex. And that's why they want a one-stop shop for the student. And that's why they want a one-stop shop for the customer, for the member, for the very same reason. And I think why this matters so much is going back to the final thought here is feedback. Are you asking for the feedback when needed? And are you tackling segmented responsibility, or are you attacking shared responsibility in your daily work? I think knowing that's important too. Do you know what type of work that you have? Because if you have segmented responsibility, it's a lot easier to know what exactly you're responsible for. But if you know that you have shared responsibility and more of the work in your institution, your organization is of that nature, shared responsibility, then you know that you can choose to leave the work on the table for others to pick up, or you can pick up that work yourself.
I would say,
and that choice right there, that choice is driving the success of many professionals who are looking at the work before them and saying, I'm willing to do the emotional work the rest of you sitting at this table aren't willing to do.
See, I think the distinction is leadership for me. So that in that pool, that centralized pool, the one stop, if you have your leadership represented there, the management and the C-suite, I think it can be successful. If that's just where you place all the underlings, I don't think you'll be successful, because it will just be passing the buck, and everyone goes to the lowest common denominator in a workplace. So the lowest common denominator is the least amount of work necessary to get through the day, the aforementioned getting that paycheck. And if that lowest common denominator seeps into that centralized pool of work, then that means that if one person says, I don't know, how about this person? Then it's okay to say, I don't know, pass it along. If you don't actually have the tools or the knowledge to address each individual thing and it just gets passed around, then I think you're adding a new model, which will soon be decentralized. And then you will again have teller one, teller two, teller three, because you're like, well, this is obviously isn't work. We need to re-segment this.
Yeah.